Hello, everyone. Welcome to Data College, where we help you build data solutions to your problems. We help you with your coding problems, building your web apps, your data automation, machine learning, and all data problems that you can think about in Python, R, VBA, AppScript, Stata, and all that. If you have a specific problem, you can hit us in the chat section, and we will help you build your solution. Straight away to today's work. Today, we want to build a solution to send personalized emails to your clients in Gmail. Assuming you have a list of clients, 1,000, 2,000, 1 million list of clients, and you want to send personalized email to them and say, hello, this one, this, that, and that. Individual emails to everyone in Gmail. And also, you might want to uh, schedule the email for a later time or date. We are going to cover that as well today. So straight away, as you can see here, I have a sample workbook. Do not worry, the link to this workbook is in the comment section. You can always make a copy of this, and the code is also available for you. You can customize it for yourself. But let's go through how we generated this code. So basically, this is the first name, the last name, and email, and the amount due and deadline. You can see that each of them have their individual amounts and different deadlines, and we want to send this email at a click of the button to every one of them. So straight away, how do we do that? Now you can see at the top here we have what we call extensions. Extensions. So first of all, you're going to go to extensions. I'm going to talk about extension here. One thing that we have in Excel, which is also in Google Sheet, is the code behind it. In Excel, we have what we call VBA. Those of you who have worked with Excel before, you might have interacted with VBAs, with a code behind where you can write customized codes and automation and all that. Google Sheet also has what we call AppScript. Now, you may not want to, you don't actually have to learn AppScript. There's a plus for those of you who don't really want to learn it. You just want to know what code is behind what and replicate your work with ease. You can always use the recording session. It's similar to what we have in Excel, where you record macros. So in recording, what it does is that when you put it on, whatever you do, it records the code, the AppScript code that does that at the background for you, so you will not have a problem. Great. Now, with this said, today we are going to go to the AppScript. So straight away, we open AppScript. When you open AppScript for the first time, it's going to give you an untitled project, as you see here, with the first file called code.gs. We can rename the file to, let's say, email, something like that, email.gs. And then also you can rename your project to send emails. It's very good to always rename your projects, because when you are looking for the AppScript project, it's very easy. If you leave it untitled and you have multiple projects, that becomes a problem. Now, you can always add more codes like AppScript codes. You can add an HTML file and all that here. Today, we are working with a script code. Now, basically, when we talk about AppScript, it is simply, someone can say, is mini JavaScript. It's basically JavaScript language that we are going to write here. So it's a good news for those of you who have interacted with JavaScript before. AppScript is just a mini JavaScript. All the functions we use here, variable, console.log, and all that is available for us here. The functions, the loops, and everything, they are the same. And that's good news, right? It's easy to understand as well. Now we can start our code today. We are going to write a function. I'm not going to spend time to talk about function here, but in our previous videos, we did a video on functions in AppScript as well. You can look at that in our previous videos. So our function today is going to be called email, or send email. Send email is our function today. And then our function is not going to take any parameter, because we are not calling it anywhere. We are just writing one simple function here. Now, within the function, we are going to start writing our code. Now, in AppScript, what the good thing is that, remember, we started the AppScript on this Google workbook. And one of the things we have is that Google Sheet AppScript has predefined functions that we can use, right? And we can start by defining variables and loops and all that. So let's first define our variable to call our app script to recognize this particular workbook that we are working with. So how do we do that? Let's start with our variable. We can start with our variable and define our variables and say that our variable a spreadsheet ss should give us spreadsheet app. So immediately you start typing, you see that recommendations come for you. Those of you who really don't want to type, spreadsheet app dot get. We use what we call get active spreadsheet, as you can see here. Right, get active spreadsheet. Then we can end it here. Right, I like writing my codes short, 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 so they are easy to interpret. Now, what get active spreadsheet does is that it gets us the active spreadsheet from which we open this code, app script code. So it is going to get us this spreadsheet. That does not mean it's getting us the tab or the sheet we are working with. It gets us the whole entire workbook. So we will need to get the sheet as well. So we are going to say that our worksheet, which we are working with today, from the spreadsheet, the active spreadsheet that we have, from the active spreadsheet that we have, which is SS defined here, we are going to get sheet by name. We are going to get sheet by name, and then we will put it here. Now you go there and look at the sheet you're working with. Our sheet is called sheet one. Those of us who really don't want problems can just come and copy the name and then come here in quotes, put the name of your sheet in there, get sheet by name. So it's going to get us the sheet. Now we have the sheet and we can work with it. We can get rows, we can get columns, we can get values and all that. Now that we have our sheet, what we are going to do is, first of all, analyze the data we have, the information we have. We have 5 columns and we have as many rows as possible. It really doesn't matter. So we will need to first of all know how many rows we have in the data, right? How many rows we have in the data, because each of the rows stands for an individual. So an example, row 2 is for Nick Thomas, 3 is for Andrew Giles, and that. So each row will stand for an individual. So that means if we have 100 rows, we are going to send 100 emails, right? So that means when we get the number of rows we have, we can now loop through that number of rows and then define our functions to run our emails, send our emails for us. So let's go straight away and get our last row. So I'm going to call it last row. So basically what we are doing is that from the sheet, we have a function called get last row. Get last row. So we have get last row will give you the last row. We have get last column is going to give you the last column in that. And it's going to give us the row in terms of numbers. If there are 20 rows, it's going to give us 20. If there are 30 rows, it's going to give us 30. But I'm going to pause here and then talk about how to troubleshoot your code. Basically, when you start writing a particular code, you wonder whether it's really going to work, whether it's working, and all that. I like always when I'm writing, I have a particular log where I see whether what I'm writing is working or not. You can always run and check and see whether the code you are writing is right or not. Now, in AppScript, we have 2 ways where you can check your code and the output of your code. You can use logger. You can use logger.log, logger.log like this. And then whatever you want it to be displayed in the console, you can put it here. Those of you who work with JavaScript, you would rather want to go with console.log. They do the same thing. These do the same thing, right? So right now, I want us to run and see what we've just written and see whether our last row is giving us something meaningful. Right. So we want to see it in the console. Now, at the top here, there are some menu items that you can use here. Run. If you say run, it's going to run it for you. Save. I have saved it already. It would have saved it. You can debug it, and then you can choose. If you have multiple functions, you can select the multiple function. And when you're running execution log, all the executions, the log, the things that you log in your console or your logger will all be shown here. So let's straight away start by running our app. The first time you run, it will ask for permission, and you will have to grant this permission. Um, these days, the permissions come not only the first time, there are sometimes random times that uh, Google Shido asks you to give permission. You go to advanced, and then you would go to the send email project. Don't worry about that. It's your own code. It's not going to break anything in your email. And then you're going to allow that access to it. Now, if it is successful, it's going to run. Now you see that what we logged in there, the last row that we logged at the bottom there is giving us 21. We come here and we verify and see how many rows do we have. We have 21 rows. That is good. Now that we have 21 rows, we can now loop through each of the rows and get the data for each individual. And that's the second thing we want to do. Let's get straight about getting the data for each individual. So I'm gonna put a comment here, get individual data. Now we are going to start with a simple way, and then we are going to move to a much advanced way of getting all the information together. Right now that we have the sheet, uh, we are going to define a particular variable here as well. So let's say we define a variable which is, let's try and see if we can get the name Nick here, Nick, which is A2, cell A2. So we can say that give us cell A2 is a variable. We are going to delete this later on actually. Cell A2 is going to give us the sheet variable defined here, dot. Now, app script, mini JavaScript uses dot to tell you all the functions that you can actually call on the parent function that you're working on. So on in the sheet, we can get a function called get row range. This one, get range, right? So we are going to say get range. Now, in the get range, there are two ways that you can get range. We can get range with a R1, C1 notation. We can get range by just calling the raw range. So, an example, if I want A2, I can just say A2, and it's going to get me that range. And in A2, what do I want? I want to get the values of the value in the A2, which is this one. So now, instead of me logging the last row, let me log A2 and see if what this does for me. Nick, correct. So we have been able to get the sheet. The range we are looking for is A2. You see that? Nick is there. So you can call it A2 if I want A2 to B2. Let's see if we run this. It gives me Nick again. Why did it give me Nick? I called a range, not one range, but two range, a range of two cells, but it's giving me only one. Wow. The simple reason is that here we are saying get value, but and if get value is going to give us only one value in this case. So basically, you have to change it to get values so that it can run and get you all the values in those ranges. Now you can see that it gives me a list in a list with comma separated values in there, Nick Thomas. So that is one quick thing for you: get value and get values. If the range, if what you are, the value you are getting is in a range, is not only one cell, always use get values. If it is one cell, you can use get value, and that works for you. Great. Now, another way of getting this value A2, which we had here, I'm going back to the A2, which we had here. Another way of getting that is to have a A2, say A2, A21. So I'm going to get another variable called A2, and that's called 1. Now, another way of getting this A2 is to use the what we call the R1C1 notation instead of just the raw um, range that we have called in there. So I'm going to get range. Now the R1 row 1 column 1, the row column notation, R1C1 notation goes by this. Now you can use, we are going to use numbers, and it is row comma column, right? Row number comma column number, right? So we can get row 1, which is the first row, and then comma column 1. But in this case, we are looking for nick, we are looking for row 2 and then the column 1. So we are going to get 2 comma 1. And that, when we get the value, right? Now I'm going to bring my dot here. When we get the value here, is going to be the same as what we have here. So let's add this in our log. Let's add a2 underscore 1 in our log. Right? And let's run and see. So as you can see, nick and nick, right? Nick and nick. So the A1 and A2 are the same, nick and nick, and that gives us that. Now, the reason why I'm showing these two ways is that you have to leverage on what you have to build what solution you need. Now, looking at the fact that we are able to get the last range, the last row here, which we logged previously, and now we are able to use numbers, right? The R1C1 to loop through each of the, we can use that number to loop through each of the rows, right? We can write a for loop that will loop through each of the rows from 1 or from 2, in our case here, from 2 till 21, the last row, and it will give us all those values. Let's see how that goes. So I'm going to delete this, right? I'm going to delete this, and now let's say, so basically we're going to write a simple loop in app script. So we start with a for loop. You can write a while loop and all that, and whatever you are going to define should be in your bracket here, and then open your braces and close your braces, and everything for your loop would be in here. Now, for what are you defining? Let's define our variable in for our variable, let's call it I, right? For I, which is equal to 2. Now, the reason why we are saying I is equal to 2 is that we want to loop from the second row, right? We are looping rows. When we loop through the rows, we can define the column numbers and then get our values. So from I is equal to 2, then semicolon, right? I should be less or equal to the last row, right? So we are saying that looping from variable I, which is equal to 2, until I is less or equal to last row. That means it's going to end at last row. And then how do we want the increment to be defined? The increment should be that let I increase by 1 point. We call it I plus plus. Now the increment, you can define it I minus minus or all the increments that you have. So there are 3 basic arguments here, where the variable you are defining and where you define your variable and where it starts from, where it ends, and then the increment level that you want. Now, to test this, we can just decide and say, okay, well, we are not going to put anything in here. Let's just test and see uh, whether it works well. First of all, test your loop and see if it's working well. You log your console and say that let's log our variable I and see if our loop is running well. And there we go. Our loop is certainly running well. You can see that from here we have from 2, 3, 4, 5. So we can now use that as our column numbers, right? And then in the R1C1 notation that we did to get the details that we want in there. So now we go in there, the R1C1 notation. If I want to get nick now, right? Since I know that I have an I which starts from 2, 3, 4, and 5, if I want to get all the first names, what I'm just going to do is that let me define my variable and say first name. right? First name is equal to then my sheet dot. Let me get the range now. Now, instead of defining static numbers like 1, 2, 3, I am going to use the first. Remember, the first one is the row, comma, column. And now, since we have the row increasing in our loop, I'm going to say I for my row, right? I for my row, comma, then 1. Now, I1 means that column row I and the column 1. Remember, the I is going to be increasing from 2. Right? And if I log this variable first name, if I log, if I do my console, let me bring this down so I don't usually have to delete it all the time. Console the log, if I log my variable first name here and I run, you're going to see Nick. Great. Oh, that did not come. And the very simple reason is that we just got a range, we did not get a value in there, right? We didn't get a value in there. So make sure you write your codes well, complete your codes to run. You get the values now and we run, and you have Nick and all that. Now you can see that we have the first names, right? So now we have gotten the first name, Nick, Andrew, and all that. If we want to get the last name in there, right? If we're going to get a last name in there, we can just write a variable which is called our last name, and that is going to be the same thing we get. We get our range, right? And our range is now going to be I, right? Comma. Now instead of column 2, we are going instead of column 1, we are going to the second column, and the column number is 2, and that's that one as well. We are going to get value for that, and that should be it. Great. So if we change this and say that log first name, and then let's add our last name in there, it's going to log the first name and then last name for each one. We are going to see, you see that? Great. So you see, now we have Nick Thomas, Andrew Giles, Rick Jonah. So we have that, and that is a good start. We can use the same method to get the email addresses as well. And then the email addresses as well, we go to variable, then we have the email. Now the email address, guess what? We are going to get the range, and the range here is going to be our I, comma, column 3 is our email, and we are going to get value for that email, and we are going to end our role here. Remember, in AppScript, just as in JavaScript, you can end your roles with a semicolon. It is not compulsory in AppScript. You can decide not to end with a semicolon, but it is a good practice for you, right? Now we have our emails. We can decide to add the email as well here and check and see whether the email also comes well. Okay, the email also comes well. Then we can proceed and get the amount and the deadlines as well. So I'm just going to write all that together. Variable, then we are going to get amount. Amount just got to shape. I'm going to get our sheet and get range. Range is going to be I to column 4, and we are going to get values, get value for that, and we are going to get deadline is also equal to our sheet. We're going to get range. We're going to get range, and our range is going to be from rule I, and then the column is going to be the 5th column. And we're going to get our value in there, and that should be it. So if we add here our no, this is supposed to be amount, our amount, and then we add here our deadline, and we run that, you can see that. Oh, you see that? You see that? So we have Nick Thomas, $100 Wednesday, Friday, Sunday, Tuesday. Oh, that's great. So now we can use this information for each and every one of them, and then we can write our email to them. Is that not something great? Now, the next step we are going to go through now is to define our email parameters. So I'm going to comment this out, right? So I'm looping through that. Let's define email parameters. So we are going to uh, define email parameters. Now, in defining our email parameters, we want to define the message that we will be sending to the individuals. And in the message, we have to be sure of what we want to send to them. So let's start. Our variable is our email message. This is our email message. Now, in variables here, you can always write your message in here with your strings. You can join your strings, combine your strings with the variable names, integers, and all that. Simple way to do that. But I usually use a very simple way of writing a long list of text where you can put in you can reference or call your variable names in there. I really enjoy that, and that is what we are going to do today, right now. So basically, one way, you need to understand that one way in which you can write variable a list, right? Let's say a long test message. If those of you work with Python, you have your three uh, quotes to start with and all that. So I could write my message this way and say hello, right? Hello, comma. Then I will call the first name and the last name of the person, right? Hello, something like this. It's a test, comma, and I would say plus, right? I can concatenate that, right? Concatenating a test and a variable, and now concatenate that with first name, right? Hello, first name. Now, uh, let's log this and see how that looks like, right? Console, log that in our console, and then we are going to say our message. Let's see how the message goes. So for each of them, you're going to see hello Nick, hello this, hello that. That's a good step ahead. But assuming you don't want to write all the plus plus, if your test is so long, you can use the backtick character on your keyboard. You just start your backtick and it closes it for you. Here I can write hello is a long test. The advantage of the backtick character is that you can actually bring your text down. You don't need to define your line breaks automatically. It can take that as one variable, right? And that's the advantage of it. But in the backtick, if you want to define a variable, you need the dollar sign, open braces and close braces, then you can call your variables in there. So this is the same as what we wrote. If we run this, it's going to give us the same thing as we did, as you can see. So now that we have these, we can define, write our message, our entire message, and our message is going to go hello first name, right? Then we go to say that thank you for working with us, something like that, right? Working with us this year, right? We are excited, or something like that. Thank you for working with us is something we want to write for everyone. But you can see that in the messages here, we want to let them know that you have an amount that you need to pay, and then a deadline is due. So you can say that you can come here and say, please note that your amount, right? Uh, your amount of, then we are going to call the amount. Remember, we define the amount variable in here. You're going to call the amount. It's going to be there. It's due, right? It's due on, then we are going to call the deadline variable as well. And that's it. So if we run this with the message logged at the bottom, we are going to see this message for each of them. You can see this there. You'll see that, hello Nick, thank you for working with us this year. Please know that your amount, blah blah, is due now. But you can see that each of the messages, there's like a paragraph in there which we basically may not want, right? So what you can do is that you can use HTML to format your email to make it look better. So instead of bringing it on the new line, you may want to uh, do an HTML break, right? Break the line here, or maybe bring in a line break. If you bring in a line break, let's see how that looks like. You can see that if you bring in a line break, it doesn't really changes because this is a long test. So if I bring in a line break and I have it like this instead, you will see that the thank you comes with a line break. Don't worry about that. We are going to run our message with an HTML syntax actually. Great. So you have your message and you want to send this message to every one of them. Now that our message is set, let's trigger our email. To trigger the email app script, there is a function called mail app, and that is what we are going to use to send the email. So you can just start writing it. If you start writing, you see the mail app. Now, mail app, there are two things you can do. You can get remaining daily quota. There is a daily quota for sending emails, and you can actually send an email, which is what we are going to do. Now, if you are writing the mail app, we will look at the individual arguments that you need in there. There, so you bring your open braces to take your argument. Since we are going to have a list of arguments, we are actually going to define our dictionary of arguments in here. Now, things that we need is who we are sending it to, right? Who we are going to send it to, right? And then we define the to email here. So we will define who we are sending it to. And remember, there's an email here that logs for each and every one of them. And then we can say we are sending it to this email variable, right? Great. Then comma. Then we can define our CC. You can copy and blind copy and all that is allowed here as well, right? We can decide to say that we are copying the same person. Great. Comma. Then we can define now our subject, right? Our subject, and in our subject, what is our subject? Remember, our subject is uh, something we haven't defined here, so you can just write it here and say that reminder, payment reminder, something like that. Payment reminder, and then you can add whatever email subject you want there. You can put it in there. You can actually even call variables in there. Then we have the body. Now that since we have HTML, if you have HTML syntax in your message or the body, which is defined here, you may have to use the HTML body, right? You may have to use the HTML. No, I need a comma here. That is why that it isn't working well for me. HTML body, right? I'll define my HTML body here, and that message is the message we defined above. Let me correct that and put an A here, and remember to put an A here as well. Wherever, I love that. Great. Now that we send that a comma, there are several arguments you can look. You can look at it in the API of sending email in Google Sheet. You can also say no reply, right? You can maybe you want to send an email, you don't want them to reply, right? No reply. If you set it to true, that means they are not going to be able to reply. If you say false, that means they are going to be able to reply. Now, if we have this, then we have ended with our basic parameters. You can add attachment. If you have attachment, you can define your attachment and all that. We don't have any of that. So we can end that and then close our mail app. Remember, we have defined this in a loop, and then it is going to actually run through each of them with a message, look at each of them, their names, their emails, pick their emails, right, and send to them, right. Uh, One thing I want to add here we mentioned only the first name, right? We might want to add the last name. So we might want to say, put a space in there and add the last name in there. So the full name of the person is mentioned. Let's run this and see if it works, right? Do not worry if there are errors, we'll fix that and continue. Great. It's going to seek permission because here we are doing something else than just writing a code. We are sending an email, and it's going to send email with Data College official Gmail to all the emails that are listed there. And we're going to allow that. It's running. So it's running, executed, and completed, right? We didn't log anything, so we are not able to see anything. We can go to our Gmail and actually verify and see if the emails were sent. If we go to our Gmail, you can see that all 21 emails are here. Oh, that looks great. So you can see that here I listed the same email address so we can track and see. So the first we just want to look at that and see new ones are coming. So Rick Jonas is the first person. You can see that. No, that's not the first, that's the fourth person. That is the fourth person's email. Nick Thomas, Andrew. Nick Thomas is the first person. This is the email. For some reason, uh, the first person's email was delayed. It depends. Do not worry about that. The emails will all go now. And if I open the first person's email, uh, now if I open the close that. If I open the first person, this person's email, he said that thank you for working with us this year. Please note that your amount of uh, $400, that is for Rick Jonas. Rick Jonas is $400, and that's correct. As I mentioned, we may include HTML tags if you want to add a break or paragraph. You can just put it in there. Let me add a break, a line break here. Um, two line breaks in here as well. Then I'll save that. So our emails are working. They are, some of them are delaying. Do not worry, all of them should come. And now we have all 21 emails. That's interesting, right? That's interesting. All emails. So I'm just gonna go ahead and delete all these emails. Now that you have we have the emails sent, one of the things we're going to do today now is to look at, okay, now that you have this sent, remember you can customize this. If your names are not in the same column, you just, all you need to do is to change the column name numbers for where your columns are and what is in there. You can customize with your message. If you have an attachment, you can include it there. Assuming we want to schedule this for a particular time to send to our clients, right? So we can go to the far left corner, look at the clock icon here. There's something we call triggers. Now we go into the trigger. In a trigger here, right? This is our first project. So we're going to view that. In the trigger here, we can define a trigger and say, let it trigger at a particular time. Let it trigger. We are going to define a simple trigger that will trigger in 2 minutes, right? So we can monitor and see. So I'll add a trigger. And then the function I want to trigger is my send email function. If you have multiple functions in the same project, you're going to choose the one you want. Deployment is from the head, leave it as default. And then the source is from, you can say spreadsheet, calendar, you can schedule it to run based on your calendar. We are using the time driven one, right? You can set it to run every hour, every day, every week timer, monthly timer, minutes timer, or specific date and time, which is what we are using today, right? Specific date and time, you have to enter the year, month, and then the date. So 2023, today is 5th May 23, and then our hour is, with me here is 12:39. So I'm going to say 12:41, right? And I'm going to save that, right? When I save it, 12:41, this time driven email should deploy. That is going to be in 2 minutes time. So let's wait for that. Great. 2 minutes is over, and you can see that though there was a delay, the emails are now coming. We did not send this. You can see that they are coming. Uh, 2 minutes is over, but there was a delay. So basically, there is usually like a 1 minute delay and all that. We set it to 12:41, but the emails come at 12:42. Do not worry. If you think you are working with strict time, you might send your email, schedule your email to run maybe a minute or two, three, 5 or 5 minutes before the time. But basically, that is how it works. So, yes, our email worked, our trigger ran well, and the error rate you can check here is 0%, right? 0%. Disabled, you can see here that disabled means that it's not going to run ever before, because we set it to run only once. If you set it to run weekly timer, monthly timer, it's not going to be disabled. So yeah, that's that. Thank you so much for joining our tutorial today about how to send personalized email. Check in the comment sections. If you like our video, subscribe to our channel to promote this channel. If you have any specific question, any issues you want us to help solve in app script, in Python, VBA, and all that, design, data flow, and automation systems for you, reach out to us and we will help you build your data solutions. Thank you for joining our Data College today. See you again. Bye bye.